G'day ladies and gents, Full Face here, coming at you live and direct from Bustleton, Western Australia. Yeah, cheers mate, get right on me girl. Rightio, today I've got a VFR800 Crossrunner X. This is a 2014 model. I borrowed this really quickly from Bustleton Motorcycles. They're always willing to lend me any bike they've got, which is I'm very thankful for. Thanks guys. So the VFR800X Crossrunner is a takeoff of obviously the VFR800 FI. They're a great bike. I haven't ridden the new one. I've ridden the 2001 model. Very, I don't know, they're a very good all-rounder. This one being the sports tourer version of the same bike, so you've got the same swing arm, the same chassis with different suspension, obviously different bodywork and different seating. You get the panniers with this one included, and it is quite a nice ride. A couple of things I've noticed so far that's differed even from the old one is that there's a lot, it must have a bit of a tamed down map, because it's definitely soft off the bottom, but then ramps up pretty quickly. And the other thing with the VFR, these have a V4 engine that is extremely linear. A couple other bits and pieces to note. You've got a preload adjuster just behind the passenger foot pegs there. So you can actually quickly tailor that to two-up riding with just a reach down and grab. And yeah, you've got a 6-speed gearbox. These things weigh 242 kilos, but they're actually, once you get them moving, don't feel too bad. They're a little bit top heavy, but it's not bad at all. So just check out the dash. As you can see, it's pretty good. I mean, we're in a bright day out, and you can see that pretty clearly. Like, I can see the time, the fuel gauge, the revs and everything quite well. This one's an ABS. I think they've all got ABS. It's got heated grips, which is cool, standard. Traction control, adjustable levers, and obviously you've got a bit of a trip computer and stuff through there. So let's start it up and we'll go for a bit of a ride. I haven't got a huge amount of time with this one. They actually close in about 10 minutes. So they sound good. Obviously with this model having the engine from the latest model VFR is equipped with VTEC. Now you really actually can feel that kick in. I do remember when I first got into bikes, one of the guys that I used to go riding with, he used to shadow me around everywhere. In WA you must have, if you're on your learners, you must have a shadow, which is another person who's had their equivalent license for 4 years or more. And he loved his VFRs. He's still got one to this day. He's got 3 in fact currently in his shed. And he's the one who really sort of ticked me onto him, and the V4 engine is probably one of my favourite configurations. So cruising along through town, this bike's extremely comfortable and it's extremely stable, I've noticed. If you pull up to any sort of stop sign or anything like that, you just feather that clutch a little bit and just keep the revs at 1,000, 1,500 sort of thing. The thing will stand upright at a stop. It's almost odd how well it sort of is capable of just sort of sitting upright. And the other thing I've noticed is the clutch. It's an extremely heavy clutch, but I really like it. I don't say heavy is a bad thing. This thing actually translates all of the feel through exactly how I like it to. I'm used to a KTM clutch more than any other bike really, and they run a Magura hydraulic setup, and this feels very similar to that. You can feel all of it, and it's really quite good. As I mentioned earlier with this bike, it's a little bit softer off the bottom with the accelerator, so for around town, that sort of stuff, it's just awesome. You don't have to touch it and it rockets, it jolts you forward or anything like that. It's very smooth and forgiving. Although we've got the stock exhaust on there, it actually sounds quite good. Now, I haven't got a lot of time, and I'm going to quickly going from here out to the industrial area to do our brake tests and as much of an acceleration test as I possibly can, but I've got to be back in less than 5 minutes. So the other thing to note is, again, this does weigh 242 kilos, though it doesn't really feel all that heavy once you get moving. It moves around town quite well, and although it feels long, it almost feels MT sort of short. And I say MT short because if you've ever ridden an MT-07, MT-03 or anything like that, they're short and tall, and they feel very nimble like that. And this bike does too, even though it's a little bit longer. Obviously the fairing extends past the forks a fair bit. With this screen, I have noticed a lot of buffeting, and it sort of must be just catching me somewhere on the helmet. I can feel it just here, and it's just making a bit of noise. Although I'm not getting any buffeting, it is quite noisy. Just going through the gears a little bit there, up and down, and just moving around the revs, and it actually sits on a rev quite easily compared to a lot of the other bikes I've ridden. This bike's biggest competitor, well, it was probably made to compete against the Tracer, the Yamaha MT-09 Tracer. And although being a bit heavier, so the Tracer's, it's got the triple in there, it's going to be a bit lighter, and they're an 850. These are, I think, a 769 or something weird like that. I can't quite remember off the top of my head, but they're not just a couple of cc's under the 800, they're a good 30 odd cc's under there. But obviously with the assist of VTEC, it still retains a lot of the low end, but it doesn't have that punchy low end like the Tracer does, even though the MT-09 obviously and the Tracer have a slightly different map. This one feels like it's mapped from the VFR800 a lot more differently than the Tracer is from the MT-09. So that's just something to note. This one is a lot more forgiving and calm around town, whereas the Tracer feels a lot more like the MT-09, and it's still quite snatchy really. As you notice, as I come out of the roundabout, I was in third gear there. It doesn't really like to be in too lower gear. It's one of those engines, sort of like the XTs a little bit, that really like to be in that rev range that they can really sit in happily, and if you come in too low, it will let you know. It's not too bad, it's not like the XT where it starts breaking traction and stuff like that, but it does let you know and chug a little bit. So what I'm actually doing now is just firing out the highway so I can do a quick acceleration test on the way back, and what I'm going to do now is just a quick brake test from 45 and a brake test from about 65, 70. So let's check them out. These are ABS, mind you. Pretty good, pretty good. You hear that VTEC kicking in? Just has it goes from a rumble to a bit of a snarl. The way it leans over is very nice too. It's a very comfortable bike to tip in. It doesn't drop like the Testride does. The Testride sort of drops to a point and then gets comfortable. This thing just floats over. Let's try the acceleration. Oh, I think that was traction control. Wow. That was weird. I'm going to do that one more time. Do the brake test up here and turn around and go back the acceleration test one more time. So Not bad, not bad at all. The ABS system does feel pretty good, although it feels like it might be intervening a bit too early. So here we go, last acceleration test, then we're taking it back. Traction control? I don't know. I'm gonna have to do some investigating there. That's a little bit odd. So that's it, ladies and gents. That's been a real quick test ride review of a 2014 VFR800X Crossrunner.